I think it's time for Reddit to die. It's time for us to let it go, to stop supporting basically what's been done to the internet by platforms like Reddit. And I'm trying my best not to sound like some rage bait YouTuber here. Reddit's going to die and you should be mad about that and then be mad at me for having these controversial hot takes. But really, when it comes to what you are probably inundated with at this point of nostalgia about how the internet used to be, it's real easy to write all of it off as, oh, that's just what you grew up with, that's just nostalgia, blah, blah, blah. But I always like looking at nostalgia and trying to identify what the real, tangible feeling behind it is. And if there's anything real behind it at all. Like, is it just a feeling? Do I just miss the good old days for what they are, blah, blah, blah? Or are we really missing something today? And with a lot of the old web versus new web conversation, we are still missing major pieces, and we don't realize it until it's too late. Specifically, Reddit's been on my mind. It's been a few times now, even back in 2023. But while I was on hiatus for a bit, Reddit announced that they will be blocking Internet Archive's Wayback Machine from archiving Reddit posts. And similarly, last year they announced that they would be blocking basically all other search engines except for Google from searching Reddit. So first of all, this just sounds dumb on the surface. Like it's probably easy to hear something like that and be like, wait, what? But when you look into the reasoning, it's actually kind of even more nefarious because I guess let's rewind for a moment. If you are unfamiliar with what Internet Archive is, Internet Archive is, I mean, the name is self-explanatory. It is an archive of the internet that attempts to allow us to back up important documents, resources, images, videos, things that might not be preserved anywhere else. It acts as an online library, but it also provides the Wayback Machine, which allows you to see websites in the past, either because they went down and aren't available anymore, so it gives you opportunity to still access that information, to still see what things were like, or to see if things have been edited or manipulated since you originally saw it, which is crucially important for a million reasons. It is one of the most important online resources that we have. Reddit basically acts as a massive knowledge base now. It's a massive crowdsource. It's supposed to be an image board. You post pictures to it, you get some funny ha-has from the memes, and you get an upvote. And you hoard some upvotes because people like fake online currencies that make them feel popular. But it has turned over time into the internet's kind of unified knowledge base, where there's so many subreddits or sub-websites dedicated to individual specific niches, like not just photography, but also night photography, astrophotography, or like weird product photography, or just like super weird out of focus blurry stuff in the Sizz subreddit. Like there's so many niches and sub niches that allow you both to just engage with the hobby as well as connect with others and communicate about it, but also to learn information. And then there's lots of subreddits dedicated to getting help on specific subjects, whether it's DIYing, house fixing, legal issues. It can be a great resource in that regard. The problem is it's completely centralized. Now, just to be clear, when I'm talking about centralization here, I'm not talking about it in the stupid Web3 concept. I'm talking about in real world terms. Reddit is a singular centralized hub for all of these small communities and conversations and topics to be discussed. It is one website. It is a single point of failure. So if something goes wrong, or if these people who control or influence the site decide to do something nefarious with it, such as the API access restrictions that happened in 2023, then we either lose all of that or the community responds in a way that takes it away from us. In 2023, due to those API weirdness where they started basically breaking all third-party clients, over half the website pretty much went down due to a massive widespread Reddit blackout, where moderators of various different subreddits basically went dark, didn't allow posts, took everything offline, whatever. And a lot of us, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also to express our discomfort with it, referred to it a bit as like the online library of Alexandria burning, because we decided as a collective society to put all of our online information in this one place. And obviously it's not all of it, not the point. Put a huge chunk of all of this valuable resource and crowdsourced and interactive information in this one place. So when that burns, we lose it all. That has been the big fundamental flaw with Reddit in the first place. And before, in the olden times, if we're diving into the nostalgia analysis here, we had a variety of different things. You had individual websites that were hosted by people who had expertise on a thing and were sharing information on that thing, as well as forums. Forums were a place you could go to discuss things on specific topics or whatever. You typically had forums for like fan sites, so there'd be ones about Pokemon or making Pokemon sprites or ROM hacks, or about a specific band, or maybe just punk rock music in the first place, or early 2000s emo music. Like, you'd have it for broader categories and then very specific things, or like video encoding. The Doom 9 forums is a massive resource going back 20 years when it comes to video encoding and all the intricacies there, really nerdy stuff. And that is where the experts kind of gathered. That worked okay. Maybe not as inherently accessible to the world, but then Reddit showed up. And originally, like I said, it was just this image board where people collected points for sharing funny memes. But over time, as with social media taking everything, it became this kind of pseudo social media website and absorbed kind of all of those things we typically put in other places, in wikis, in fan sites, and in forums. Between Reddit and Discord, we kind of lost all of the publicly available information from the wider web into these individual platforms, which came with the benefit of having it to being a lot easier to kind of discover these things. Like, you find a lot more interest by cross-posting and cross-referencing subreddits, but also having more people in one place. But it comes with a lot of flaws. The first is, again, that single point of failure that I described. If the administrators do something really messed up, sell off the site, as has happened with many sites before, or implement policies that the users reject, we could just lose all of it in a blink. The second is kind of twofold, and it is the same problem every other social media website is facing right now, and that is the whole everyone in one room concept just doesn't work. And this is a huge flaw with all modern social media, and why so many of us are trying to reject that and replace it with some of these older ideas. It's not just nostalgia for what we had when we were kids or teenagers, but it's because the model doesn't work. First of all, putting everyone in one room just creates chaos. Abuse, conflict, incompatibilities, like, it doesn't even need to be big scale conflict, but just personality incompatibilities to spam and inappropriate content. And then the logistical nightmare of moderation comes up, and it becomes an impossible problem to solve. And we've seen that basically on every single platform. Pair that with the fact that these are for-profit corporate websites where their entire motivation and incentive involves driving a profit, and that is driven by user retention. How can you successfully moderate and divide people, kick off bad actors, boot off bad personalities that are killing the vibe? How can you possibly implement those kinds of things if your number one goal is to have as many people as possible on the platform and staying on the platform as long as possible? You can't. You can't successfully moderate, regulate, or even just vibe check a place when you're so desperate to have everyone that you possibly can come. It's like trying to have the biggest birthday party ever, and you don't care that you have a bunch of people who don't get along. You're just so desperate for people to show up, you kind of ruin the whole vibe of the party. This has been the main cracks in the whole foundation we've been seeing with basically all of social media for the past few years. As people start getting nostalgic for the older ways, this is a big driving factor in that. Now, something like Reddit, being a singular point of information for the internet, wouldn't be so bad if we had ways of disseminating it or backing it up. You know, if Reddit went down, historically, we could rely on the Internet Archive to provide that information. You know, it's like if the cats subreddit, I guess that one's mostly pictures, the woodworking subreddit, you really wanted to reference it, but Reddit itself was gone. You might be able to find it on Internet Archive and still dig through the knowledge base and get that information for yourself. Now, it wouldn't be as widely accessible as if it were still publicly online, but you'd still be able to get it. By blocking the Internet Archive, they're blocking any sort of real-world backup that most people would have access to, and the best backup for the internet. They are blocking that and preventing that knowledge from being preserved. immediately, regardless of everything else we talk about, like that point blank is reason enough to me to stop putting information on Reddit and to start putting it on more decentralized other websites that can be backed up individually and not impacted by Reddit's dumb decisions. That alone should be a deal breaker. We cannot keep supporting, rising up, erecting this singular platform that holds all the cards if they're not willing to have a backup or a mirror or a way for us to keep that information. It's just bad policy, bad practice, poor operational security in that regard. Dumb idea. So that alone is the big deal. Pair that with the inability to search it from other search engines other than Google. That's kind of a problem. Reddit search itself is kind of bad, and I'm going to talk about why this exists, but the ability to search blah, blah, blah Reddit on Google or other search engines makes it a lot easier to find stuff. So the question becomes, why are they doing this? And the answer is AI. As always, all of our current tech and shitification is mostly AI-based at the moment. And it is they are claiming, both last year when they blocked search engines and now with blocking the Internet Archive, they're claiming it's to prevent rogue AI scanners from scanning the content, from scraping it and using it to train AI. That might sound noble on the surface. That's a massive consequence to have for AI, and there's got to be some other way around it. But that sounds like a noble cause. The problem is they aren't against AI training on their material. They just want to make money from it. Just like most websites aren't against collecting your data. They just want to make sure they can sell it for the highest profit. Reddit isn't interested in preventing AI from scraping the internet's like big knowledge base, which frankly, of all things, obviously there's art and photography and whatever on Reddit that we don't want scraped. But of all things, from the knowledge base perspective, Reddit would be something you'd want scraped by AI to make it useful in that regard. Not the point. It's not that they don't want that to happen. It's that they signed a $60 million contract with Google to let Google's AI train on Reddit, and they want to give Google exclusive access. So they are screwing over effectively the entire internet so they can make $60 million to train Google's AI. I'll let you sit with that for a moment, process that. The final question that we kind of come to from this is then what do we do about it? And the knee-jerk reaction is we need smaller sites. Decentralization is not about Web3, about crypto, about any of that nonsense. It's just about having more places that we store things in and dividing things up. To solve the moderation, the abuse, and the other problems that come with putting everyone in one room, we just need smaller rooms with fewer people in it. I know it seems like this utopic, globally connected ideal, but it's not. Having everyone in one place just doesn't work. We have too many problems, and they have had massive global consequences. The best experience is always in smaller groups that you can moderate better. So if someone doesn't pass the vibe check, you can boot them out because your goal is not keeping as many people there as possible. It's providing the best experience for this thing. So to do that, we need more individual websites, individual wikis, forums, community pages, web rings. We need more individual websites where people gather for an individual topic. If you're a fan of a really hardcore, like specific niche, you should be making your own fan site or forum or whatever for that to talk about it and to try to get some of those people over there and provide a good experience and build up your knowledge there so that if the subreddit goes down, you have a place to go. And it's a lot easier to back up your smaller site, to have it on Wayback Machine, to have it easily copyable should you need to pass the torch to someone else. It's a lot easier to do that when you kept it small in the first place. So like if you're really hardcore into making zines, start building up your own zine community, both in the real world, because that's arguably more important than online. But in terms of the raw information storage, start making a website for that. Same with anything else. Forums, discussion boards, individual fan sites, wikis, wherever you want to do that, as long as it is something that's a little bit more self-controlled and not just another platform. Like one of the biggest issues in information being available online was when so many companies took their forums over to Discord, because Discord is not a public World Wide Web thing. It is a private internet thing that is not searchable from the web or accessible, and it's beholden to all these other issues. That's not a suitable replacement. It needs to be a public web thing. The problem, of course, then we come kind of full circle here, is discoverability. Discovery. Part of the reason that in the 2010s we all moved to these more centralized platforms was search getting worse and worse. And it's worse than it's ever been today. That's why people search blah, blah, blah Reddit instead of just blah, 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 because the web is now full of lazily created or AI generated sites to get as much SEO ad revenue as possible, as well as all the AI crap in the first place. And then the search engines themselves are getting worse and worse. That is obviously a problem. That is why we kind of glued to these sites, because it was easier to find stuff on these individual platforms. But that is a self-made problem. The more we rely on these bigger companies to provide for us, the more people will find workarounds to make more money from them, the more the platforms make their own stupid rules that break things and chase their own money sources. It's a self-made problem where you got to just start implementing changes that make it better. There are alternatives to Google in the first place. I have them written down. There's one called Hoogle, which is actually a self-hosted, privacy-focused search engine, which is pretty cool. And then there is one called, Kagi, which I am starting to use lately, which is focused on no ads, no privacy, data stealing, none of that, where you are the customer as the user. And we start using these alternatives, we're going to start being able to better find search results in the first place, which will feed back to supporting those sites that we are making. This is not something we can do overnight. This is not something we can easily convince the average person who's used to searching Reddit instead of doing proper research. But that doesn't mean it's not worth the effort. For every person that we can convince to actually research a question and inform them on how to do so again, if they weren't taught in school or the rules have changed because search engines have sucked or whatever, instead of making a Reddit thread asking how to do something basic or what the light on their air conditioner means when they have in the picture a whole sticker that explains that answer for them, for every person we can convince to stop doing that and to think more critically and to use the web better and to get off of Reddit, the better the internet can be for everyone else as we start doing this. So it is a slow thing. I'm sure there are like 5 of you I will reach with this who will be convinced to just stop using Reddit altogether. But it is time. Reddit has long not operated in your best interest in the first place. It certainly isn't now, as it is removing itself from search engines and the ability to back up the important information being shared on it to Internet Archive in favor of getting paid for Google to train Reddit on their AI. They are not acting in interests that benefit us whatsoever. And it is the quantity and quality of information and communication and just value being shared on Reddit is too important to leave it on there when it's in the hands of the people that it is. And frankly, it should have never been held in the hands of a centralized person or group in the first place. Hope any of this made sense to you. Just trying to get back on the horse of making videos and making videos about stuff I care about. Most of them will not be like this, where it's kind of a negative thing. I just really wanted to talk about this as I'm trying to explain more and more what the whole decentralizing and small web, indie web thing is all about. This is one prime example where we really need to fight back. Hope you have a great rest of your week. If you're wondering where I've been, go check out this video that explains what the heck's been going on lately. And remember to be kind, rewind.